Herald and News, your news now.
The Herald and News.
Empowering the community.
Basin Views.
Herald and News, your news now. Klamath Falls, Oregon.
The Herald and News.
Podcast. Empowering the community and serving the Klamath Basin. This is the Herald and News Basin Views podcast. Greetings and welcome to Basin Views, a Herald and News podcast featuring interviews with local experts discussing issues important to the Klamath Basin. I'm Kurt Liedtke with the Herald and News. This week we are joined by Jim Chadderdon, Executive Director of Discover Klamath, which promotes our region for tourism, events such as the upcoming Ride the Rim, which takes place September 8th and 15th, and so much more. Jim, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us.
Kurt, good morning. Happy to be here.
Well, I always like to start these things off by getting to know our guests a little bit more. So before we delve into all the great things that Discover Klamath is doing in our region, can you tell us a bit more about who Jim Chadderdon is?
Okay. Well, that's going to be a short segment. Hey, I've lived in Klamath Falls since full-time since 2001. And I came to Klamath Falls, started working here on and off in 1997, relocated for a job in 2001. That job ended in 2008, and I got involved with the tourism agency at that time. And I've been with Discover Klamath since then. Academically, I've got degrees in business, marketing, and I spent most of my career in the marketing space. Doing promotions and using all mediums for promoting.
So can you give us some background on what exactly Discover Klamath is?
Discover Klamath, quite simply, is the official tourism agency for Klamath County, Oregon. Our organization is a 501c3 type entity, which is a nonprofit. We're not a membership organization. We don't collect fees from members. We're a nonprofit, and as such, we can go out and apply for grants and so forth. We do get some funding from the county. We can talk a little bit more about that, but our basic thing is we promote the county. We are trying to attract visitation and bring new people into the community that will leave their funds in our community, bring new money in.
It's an economic factor. It's not just, hey, come out and look at all the cool stuff we have, like Crater Lake and so many other opportunities, but that has a real tangible impact on our local economy and on jobs, not just hotels and restaurants and gas stations, but it has a wider range, right?
It does. We look at tourism as sort of the flip side of the coin for economic development. I mean, we really are contributing to the economy in this area, and we can talk more about that in terms of what the size of that contribution is, but you bet. We're creating jobs and we're holding jobs in the hospitality, restaurants, events, venues. So this inbound tourism does contribute to our local economy.
So how long has Discover Klamath been around and how has it grown over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were founded in January of 2008. So we've been there 10 years now. It's grown from a budget standpoint because we've probably more than doubled in terms of our budget. Doesn't mean it's huge, but our budget is derived from the local lodging tax, the bed tax at the motels and hotels, and all visitors to Klamath County, whether it's a campsite, bed and breakfast, Airbnb, VRBO, or traditional hotel motel. All of those folks that come into Klamath County will pay a lodging tax. That lodging tax, in turn, a portion of it goes to fund the tourism organization. So that's how we're funded. Those lodging taxes have been increasing over time. And so our staff for many years was 1.5 FTE or full-time equivalents. Today we have 4 people. So we're still relatively small. Relative to the other 36 counties in the state, we're probably about average.
Well, that may be direct staff, but since a lot of what you do is promotion, I'm certain there's a lot of partnerships and collaborations that you're involved with. So tell me about some of the organizations that Discover Klamath works with directly.
You bet. There are a lot of them. On an annual basis, we're working with anywhere from 25 to 40 different organizations to help them meet their goals. An example would be the Ross Raglan Theater. We've worked with the Ross Raglan for years. I'll give you some other examples. The Basin Brew and Q. We've helped that group sort of start off and grow. The Bonanza Chili and Rib Cook-Offs. We've helped promote that event for years. Ride the Rim, cycling event, events down in Merrill and Malin, like the Potato Festival. Up in the North County, they have events and festivals. We've helped with those. Out at the Running Y, the ice arena, the Bill Collier Ice Arena has an annual winter event, sort of the Icecapades event. We've helped promote that. So it goes everything from, we had a couple of years ago, the Babe Ruth World Series was here. We've been the host organization when the state Cycle Oregon event has come through here a couple of times, both on the 25th anniversary and then on their 30th. They've come through here. We've been the local community partner. So we're involved in a lot of just different things.
There's a lot of events that happen locally, but oftentimes when people are planning vacations and you're trying to attract tourists, it's a multi-destination trip where people are maybe road tripping. So with that in mind, are there organizations perhaps beyond Klamath's borders that you also collaborate with?
That's a great question, and that's really good insight. The answer is yes. Let's just sort of back up and talk about what's the infrastructure of tourism in Oregon. And there's a 1% lodging tax that is throughout the state that goes to fund the state tourism agency, which is called Travel Oregon. And their job is to promote Oregon. So they are doing promotions both nationally and internationally. Travel Oregon has established 7 what's called RDMOs, or Regional Destination Marketing Organizations. So essentially they've just divided the state up into sections somewhat arbitrarily, and there is a regional marketing entity. In our area, it's called Travel Southern Oregon, and it's based over in the Rogue Valley. And they are responsible for marketing a 5-county area that includes Lake, Klamath, Jackson, Josephine, and Douglas counties. So we are on the board of directors of that entity as well, and we are promoting on a regional basis. So we take our Klamath hat off, and we put on our Travel Southern Oregon hat, and we contribute to marketing campaigns at a regional level. So at a local level, you've got the DMO, or Destination Marketing Organization, or Destination Management Organization. That's Discover Klamath. But there are other DMOs adjoining us or adjacent to us. There's one in Ashland, and there's one in Medford. There's Bend. There's on the other side of the border. There's DMOs in Redding and Wairika and Siskiyou County, Modoc County, Lake County. We work and know all of these folks and put together itineraries and promotions to market the entire region. So we do stuff that probably 75% of what we do is dedicated to marketing and attracting people specifically to Klamath. Probably 25% of what we do is in partnership with Travel Oregon, Travel Southern Oregon, or one of the surrounding DMOs to promote some sort of a regional event or regional itinerary.
Well, one of the ways that people can find about what's going on, not just for tourists who are looking to potentially come here, but locals as well, is discoverklamath.com, the website. It's got suggestions for places to go, places to eat, sleep. There's even a travel blog on there. And it has a great calendar of upcoming events, which I actually quite use rather often in planning out things. So with that calendar, it always kind of strikes me as funny whenever I hear people say, there's nothing to do here, or what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So as someone who is actively promoting all the great things to do around Klamath, what is your response when people say there's nothing to do?
Yeah, gosh. I probably roll my eyes. There really is a lot to do in our region. Seems like there's something going on every week, every weekend, and Klamath has really become a four-season. We really have things going on all year round. So we have a long list of things to do in the winter and in the shoulder seasons, as we call them in tourism, the fall and the spring, as well as just the summer. There's certainly a lot more going on in the summer, but we do tend to be a more recreationally based sort of tourism destination. People, as I'll travel around the state and I'll talk to others about our area, people say, well, what kind of market what is in Klamath? What is it offering? We are not a shopping destination, right? We are not the micro brew capital of the state. We are not the wine region. So we don't try to be something we're not. We embrace our DNA, if you will, and our DNA tends to be predominantly a recreationally based destination. And with that, I mean, you look at all of the water that we have here. We have more rivers and lakes than just about anywhere in the state. Our trail systems are really good. Our weather is really good. I know we're going to talk more about this summer and the fires and the smoke, but our weather generally is really, really good in this part of the state. We have bike trails, mountain bike trails, equestrian trails, hiking trails, a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting, a lot of bird watching. That's a distinctive competence that we have, the birding. So there is a lot to do in this area. The other thing that's not sort of recreationally based is we do have a really good cultural base of things here in the basin. I think for a community our size of 45 or 50,000 people right in Klamath Falls in a county of about 68,000 people, we've got several really good museums, from the Malin Historical Society to the Klamath County Museum to the Favell Museum, the Baldwin Museum, the Fort Klamath Museum. We've got some wonderful historical stuff, and more people are liking that.
And that also expands regionally. Certainly, Crater Lake National Park, being the only national park in the state of Oregon, is an automatic draw, but then you can kind of expand from there and tell people about more things. There's, of course, the Shakespeare Festival out in Ashland. Lake County, a lot of people don't realize, who haven't traveled out there, Lakeview has some fantastic museums as well for people who love history. I'm a big fan of the Schmink Museum in Lakeview, as well as the Klamath County Museum. They have some really fascinating displays and some unique aspects of history there. So there is kind of a wide variety that sort of appeals to everybody, right? Whatever your flavor may be.
There is, and again, we work with folks like Lake County Chamber and the Lake County Tourism. We work with the Ashland Group, and we partner with these guys all the time. We're constantly doing. I'll give you a good example. Right now, we are trying to develop, in the tourism jargon, we call it product, more product, which is, an attraction or a new venue or something. But one of the things that we're working on together with some of the other DMOs in the region right now is to try to formally turn the Applegate Trail into something more of a destination attraction for folks. So we know that sort of like the Lewis and Clark. I mean, the inspiration for this project was the Lewis and Clark Trail. We saw what they did, and the Lewis and Clark Trail goes from Missouri all the way to the Astoria and the Oregon coast. And we saw a number of years ago that communities all along the Lewis and Clark Trail got together and worked together to promote itineraries that would bring people to the Lewis and Clark Trail. And then when the Lewis and Clark Trail a few years ago hit their 150th anniversary, that was a good reason for tremendous collaboration along the Lewis and Clark Trail. And what that resulted in is all sorts of itineraries and new content that was developed around the Lewis and Clark journey, and who were these folks, and where did they stop, and where did they go, and what did they do. And so it became this big deal. And it spurred wayfinding signage and maps and videos, and we saw what they did with that, and they created a product out of the Lewis and Clark. And we said, my gosh, look at what's going on. The Applegate Trail started in Oregon City, and the Applegates were looking for Jesse Applegate for a way to get back over the Cascades. So he came down essentially the I-5 corridor, and his journey then took him through Roseburg and Grants Pass and Medford and Ashland, and then he came east. And he came over what's today Highway 66 from Ashland, came down into Klamath Falls, got over the Cascades, and then headed east toward Lakeview, but didn't quite make it that far before veering south into Northern California and then eventually over into Nevada. So our vision on this Applegate Trail is to work with the communities that are along this Applegate Trail and just try to build something equivalent to the Lewis and Clark. It may not have the notoriety, certainly, of the Lewis and Clark mission, but so we're about a year into it, and we've already got a new brochure, new website, and we're working with like the museums to try to identify what are those points of interest in Klamath and elsewhere that we can drive people to, so that they can see an old house, or maybe there's wagon ruts in the road or a trail, or maybe there's an old monument sign, or what are those things that people can go out and visit. So that's part of our heritage and historical stuff that we're trying to continue to build.
So there's a lot of opportunities, but with that, the opposite side would be, what sort of amenities are we lacking? I can think of one right off the bat, and
Yeah.
that would be lack of commercial airline service. What things would you like to see developed that could help aid this mission of promoting tourism?
You know, that's a great question, and the airline service, we'll come back to that, but it's certainly a piece that we need to build that back up, and there's good momentum right now in the community for trying to bring a new passenger service carrier into our community. In terms of other, you know, if we had the convention center, you know, an ideal spot would be down around Veterans Park and on that Timber Mill Shores. That would give us the ability to bring groups in. We do have the Running Y convention area, and we do have the Shiloh. Those are the two, you know, sort of bona fide convention facilities that we have. But having that real convention center would be good. I know there's some things going on at the fairgrounds that are initiatives. They're trying to, you know, make some changes there that would attract more groups. Another thing that we seem to be missing is, it seems like the RV market is also really booming. You've got a lot of the baby boomers that are hitting retirement now. They've got discretionary income. We don't have much in the way of RV parks really around here. We do have the KOA over on Shasta. They've got about 93 spaces between tent camping, a couple of cabins. I think they have 3 cabins there, and then about 85 different RV spots. But, you know, if you look at the RV camp places today, it's really changed from what the KOA in Klamath Falls looks like. They've become uber modern, and they've got Wi-Fi, they've got rec centers, they've got all sorts of modern amenities. And our KOA, nothing against it. I mean, I think they do really well, but it's just a new model.
To that extent, though, I think there's also, particularly during the summer times, families wanting to disconnect and go back to the nostalgic memories of the days before Wi-Fi and Kindles and tablets and the internet, to remember what family vacations used to be like, throwing kids into a minivan, driving cross country, camping out in places. And the KOA does provide that opportunity to remove yourself from the hustle of modern society and go back to kind of this Americana ideology of travel the West and experience America for what it is, not looking through a tablet to learn about all aspects. There are many upcoming events, and I know that you and Discover Klamath are actively involved in promoting so many of them. In September alone, we have a big art show at the Favell Museum. The Klamath Independent Film Festival is coming up starting September 14th through the 16th. And a major event is happening this weekend at Crater Lake. Tell me all about what is Ride the Rim.
Yeah, Ride the Rim is just an outstanding event. It's going to run 2 Saturdays consecutively. This Saturday, the 8th of September, and then a week from this Saturday, the 15th of September. In a nutshell, Ride the Rim is a pedestrian event at Crater Lake National Park, Oregon's only national park, where much of the rim drive has been closed off to vehicular traffic. Specifically, 25 of the 33 miles around the rim drive is closed to just pedestrian traffic. So it gives anybody that wants to go an opportunity to get out on the rim in with no traffic whizzing by, no cars zooming by, no noise, just the peace of what it might have been like when those pioneers first saw that lake, just out on the rim gazing into this caldera. And it's just a fun event. It's open to runners, walkers, bicyclists, class 1 assisted bikes, and we'll see several thousand people out there on this. This event started in 2014. The National Park Service started this event, and it was called Vehicle Free Days. And essentially what they did was put a couple of pylons across the road and wouldn't let anybody in, and they never marketed it. There were no services or amenities. It was just they closed off the road. And that first year in 2014, they got about 300 people. I happened to be up there then and was one of those 300 people that sort of rode around. And I thought to myself, this is really a cool thing. That was the first thought. The second thing I thought is, gosh, I feel like the National Park Service has some exposure to liability. What if you break down like 20 miles out on the rim? There's no sag wagon, there's no water, there's no services. What if you fall off your bike and get hurt? You might die. And so I went back to the National Park staff and suggested that it be a little bit more organized, like a real bike ride. And they said, well, do you guys want to do it? And came back and I said, well, Discover Klamath really isn't in the event business. That's not our mission. We're more of a marketing agency to bring people into the county. However, I see an opportunity for Discover Klamath to sort of bring more cyclists in. And so we said yes. So we entered into a multi-year agreement with the National Park Service to be their event manager on this. And starting in 2015, we branded it. We called it Ride the Rim. We developed a logo. We started promoting it to bicycle enthusiasts all around the western United States. And lo and behold, the thing just took off. We went from 300 people the next year to 1,500 people. Then we went to 2,500 people. Then we went to 5,000 people. And then it dropped back last year because of the smoke and the fires to about 3,000. And this year we're registered over 3,000 right now.
Well, and kudos on the name change, because calling it Vehicle Free Days could also imply that people get into the park with fees waived. And so I could imagine that first year, a lot of upset people showing up thinking, hey, we've always wanted to take the kids to the park. Let's drive up. You can't get in. Sorry. Well, you did mention smoke and air quality, how that affected last year's event. I know there was concern last year's smoke was so bad. Should we cancel the event out of health concerns? It ended up going ahead. And just up until recently, thankfully, the smoke is starting to dissipate. We still have a little bit in the air, but I know there was that concern again this year too. How much has air quality affected that event and others around here?
You know, you're absolutely right. Last year, Cycle Oregon, the state big ride that's been going for 30 years or so, they canceled, and they typically run about the first week of September, so they overlap with our event, and they canceled. So last year we were like, oh boy, should we cancel? And we had like 400 Cycle Oregon people sign up the same day that they canceled last year. And then it turned out for Ride the Rim last year that the weather was gorgeous both days. It was absolutely epic. I'm hoping this year, it's hard to say this year how many people have not signed up. It's hard to say how many people have not signed up. We've done as much marketing as we've done in prior years. Our registration numbers are really good. But by the way, this is a free event. I should probably point that out. This is a free event. It costs nothing to do this event. The reason there's registration is so that we know how many people, we have an idea of how many people are coming so that we can staff accordingly. And because this is an event that is essentially funded and paid for by Discover Klamath as a means to attract people to our area, we're funding this. We're paying for this. So we go out and we buy fruit and water and treats and snacks, and we staff the 5 rest stops, and so there's a lot of expense. So having the registrations up front, if you just show up, though, you can do that. You can just show up. We just ask you to sign up the day of event.
Well, donations are happily accepted.
Oh, yeah.
For when registrations were being collected online, there was a $5 suggested donation for it.
We are very grateful for that. We've seen, I don't know what our number's at. We may have like $500 or something. You know, I don't know. It's not a whole lot more, but
every little bit helps.
Every little bit helps, and we were super, super grateful for everything. And we will also appreciate Klamath County Tourism Grant Program for helping provide a grant that's offset some of the costs. This year we've got new signs out there and maps and all kinds of things.
It's great that the weather has cleared up. I think everyone is very thankful for being able to verify that the sky is in fact still blue now in the Klamath Basin. I had to make a trip out to the Oregon coast a few weeks ago just to verify when the smoke was still here, because it seemed like it was just gray forever. Unfortunately, some other areas around here, there's an annual bike ride out in Lake County called the Tour to Outback that celebrates the scenic Oregon Bikeway there. They did have to cancel their event that happened early August because the smoke was still lingering. So in the lead up to it, I know weather looks good right now, but you never really know until the day of. Do you keep close eye on environmental impacts, and do you inform people participating in what the conditions are and health advisories?
Absolutely. On the event, well, there's a couple ways we do this. The folks that have signed up on the website address is ridetheRimOregon.com. Ride the Rim Oregon, not just Ride the Rim. There's actually a Ride the Rim cycling event in Hawaii that has been going longer than ours, hence we can't have Ride the Rim. But Ride the Rim Oregon is our website. There are updates for the weather on the website. We also have a list of email addresses for everybody that's signed up, and we are providing regular updates on the weather. We've had a lot of questions, and so we're providing regular updates. We're looking at all the air quality websites. We're looking at all the state, and these are good several days out. The long-term forecast, hard to say, but we're providing updates to everybody, and everything right now is looking really good. Our AQI, air quality index, is low. It's in the low 60s right now, so it's it's as good as it's been in a couple of months.
I used to live in Los Angeles before I came to Southern Oregon, and the joke down in LA with its infamous smog was, if you can't see the air, it's not worth breathing. The Klamath Basin kind of told LA to hold its beer for the last 2 summers. And unfortunately, we're seeing that trend, as we get hotter, drier, longer fire seasons now. And the extra frustration is that a lot of times it isn't the fires that are actually here; it's fires west of us we get impacted by the smoke that are of fires that are happening elsewhere. But that also has a major impact in terms of tourism and therefore economy. You're trying to promote all these outdoor summertime events where lots of times it's a health advisory that people cannot go outside and experience it. I'm sure numbers are still being figured out at this point, but do you have even a rough idea in terms of this summer or last summer, what kind of negative impact the smoke that we've experienced has had on tourism and the local economy?
Yeah, Kurt, it's something we're looking at and have been looking at extremely closely. So let's back up. Last year, the impacts were pretty significant, as much as maybe 25% down during the summer months. We had, if you remember, the Chetco bar fire, which was just, again, west of us in southern Oregon. And that fire went for 191 days and burned over 100,000 acres. It was devastating, the smoke that was here last year. And it, of course, as we were just talking, it caused the Cycle Oregon and many other events to cancel last year. This year, it's been, similar sort of things. It's just been a series of fires. And I've been out over the last few weeks talking with the lodging folks about what the impacts have been on lodging visits. And I've been reading, the worst I've heard, I actually spoke yesterday with a lodging operator in the Rocky Point area that's down 67%. And that's really tough on a small business, independent owner, operator type of a business. If you take some of the folks, let's take a business like a rafting guide or a kayaking guide, or a fishing guide. Those summer months, July, August, September, June, those 3 or 4 months are probably 70-80% of their year, right? And if that's down 60%, that is possibly devastating to that business. So I think this year, fortunately from a tourism standpoint, we were up nicely in the first quarter of this year, but it's a small piece of the year. We were up very nice in the second quarter of this year. We were up 18.8%, and that is a larger piece, but it's the third quarter that's really like 55-60% of the tourism year here in terms of lodging and events and bringing people in and revenue and all of that. If I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm guessing right now that we could be down anywhere from 15 to 35%.
That's a huge impact, not only to the local businesses, hotels, restaurants, and all the other ancillary services, but that also has a direct impact on you because your funding is coming from largely the lodging taxes. How does that potentially impact your future abilities to be able to market and promote the area if you're potentially losing a chunk of your funding because all the other the taxes that fuel your funding are suffering because lodging is down?
A year ago, we had the solar eclipse, if you'll remember, and it brought a lot of people through our area, and it did not affect our funding at all. We don't have any big events like the solar eclipse or the Babe Ruth World Series that occurred this summer. So we actually are in the process right now of, and I have to provide a report to the board of directors of Discover Klamath in about a week and a half on what the financial implications of being down 15 to 35% are. Right now, we do have a little bit of a contingency fund, so we can absorb somewhat of a hit without it affecting any programming that we're doing. So if we get into a scenario where the third quarter is down 50%, we might be having to pull back a little bit on fourth quarter marketing. But I think we'll be able to weather the storm this year.
Just hopefully it doesn't become a trend year after year of this thick, heavy smoke.
One of the things I'll just, since we're talking about it, you know, the fires are not just, and smoke are not just exclusive to Klamath or Klamath County. This is a regional thing, of course. And I will tell you that last year, one of the things that affected tourism in the western United States was, you know, the media coverage of the fires. Particularly the television showed these images and these headlines like, you know, West Coast on fire. And that candidly frightened international visitors away, tour bus operators away from events from the whole West Coast, and in Klamath was included in that. So I can share with you this year that tourism agencies, both at the local, regional, and state level, have been coordinating all summer long and providing very coordinated media information to all media outlets, and with respect to, you know, sort of trying to be very accurate about what the conditions are, almost in real time, so that the media is trying to provide a more balanced, and I would say that they're doing a really good job from the Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Sacramento, the major metropolitan area medias are covering the West Coast fire situation a lot better.
It can be a scary situation, and of course, no one likes breathing in smoke, but it does have ancillary effects. There's a cause and effect where it's not just affecting our health, but yes, it does affect people planning trips or planning vacations or just things to even be able to do outside. This whole summer, I felt like I was stuck in the house. It almost got to the point of cabin fever. I have to get out and do something, but I can't go and do anything because the smoke's so bad.
No. Yeah, that's how, yeah, this is sort of the summer that wasn't for a lot of folks.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about airlines, and I know that you've been actively involved in that. You have a vested interest beyond just being able to travel without having to drive out to Medford to connect to the airport there. We had a double hit. This summer, it wasn't just the smoke. The tunnel that collapsed that stopped Amtrak travel in the midst of trying to get an airline service back had to have been so frustrating for you trying to promote travel to the region. Sorry, the highway is the only way that you're getting here because you're not coming via train or plane right now, right? You called it a double whammy. I hate to say it, but it was almost a triple whammy. I've spent the last 8 or 9 years working with Amtrak and have our organization has got a tremendous relationship with Amtrak in California and in Washington. You know, the Coast Starlight, which is the line that comes through Klamath and also stops in Chemult, is the 7th most traveled route in all of United States and Canada. So there are a lot of people traveling through our area. We've been very successful at working with Amtrak over the years to promote itineraries such as get off in Klamath and go up to Crater Lake. Take the Crater Lake trolley. So when you buy an Amtrak ticket, you can also buy an add-on that takes you up to Crater Lake. Obviously, the train doesn't go to Crater Lake, but you go on the Crater Lake trolley, right? So it's a bundled deal. Sort of like Supersize Me for only another $25 or so. So we've really increased the Amtrak ridership, and Amtrak has a marketing team that we've really partnered with over the last 6-8 years, and their marketing team is marketers in Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, and Los Angeles, and Oakland, if I didn't say that. And the triple whammy was Amtrak just before this crash that they had, and then the tunnel collapse issue.
they fired the whole marketing department. So we lost all the contacts that we had. And so we're now trying to reestablish connections with people in the operations of Amtrak, not the most responsive people. They don't seem to be marketers. So we're having to rebuild. And there's no new marketing department. They're not rebuilding it. They just like nuked the department and it's gone.
Well, and it's also a gorgeous ride for people who want to travel. I grew up in Eugene, so it's very handy for me to use Amtrak, and I have, to travel between home and Klamath Falls. And it's a beautiful ride where you don't have to deal with idiots on the road or the scary portion along Upper Klamath Lake on 97 that has had so many accidents, where you can just sit back and relax and enjoy the ride and still get to your destination. So.
You know, our Klamath County Museum has had this docent program for quite a number of years, which is just brilliant. And people recognize the Klamath area for having these essentially like a tour guide on the trains from Klamath Falls up to Eugene, that 4-hour ride, and then back, pointing out all of the sort of historical sites. It might be elevation gains. It may be the flora, trees, different types of trees, rivers, water, volcanic activity. So it's really a lot of fun to go in the observation car up to Eugene on Amtrak. The Amtrak ticket sales in our area is about $4 million a year, so it's not an insignificant piece of business to our area. People, and being that we are the only stop, if you will, in all of Southern Oregon. We have a lot of people, we always talk about going over to the Rogue Valley and having to go over to the Rogue Valley to shop and this sort of thing. Well, it's actually the other way around for Amtrak. A lot of people from the Rogue Valley come over to Amtrak to drop off or pick up friends and relatives on this Amtrak. So I hope we can sort of get the Amtrak thing, no pun intended, but back on track a little bit. And it did hurt us this summer when they closed for a few weeks for tunnel repairs and so forth.
Well, speaking of transit, we talked a little bit earlier about airport and airline service, and I know you were very actively involved in the renaming of it, and you're still involved in the pursuit of a new commercial airline service here. So tell me where things stand. First of all, how you got involved in the renaming and where things stand right now in terms of airlines.
The renaming is a funny story. Quite a few years ago, when we had SkyWest here in Klamath, we were dealing with some service issues. And for those of our listeners that have been in the market and have flown quite a bit, it's hard to find somebody that hadn't been affected by one of the service issues, and either a delay or a cancellation. Almost everybody I know here in Klamath had been stranded in San Francisco or left stranded in Portland, or had their flight canceled in Klamath. And we were looking at the statistics and saw that the amount of delays and cancellations were pretty high. And so our local airport manager at the time, John Longley, said, hey, let's take a trip out to meet with the SkyWest folks and share with them our statistics. So he invited me and a couple of other folks to go with him. So we all hopped on a plane and we went to St. George, Utah, and we met with SkyWest and executives, and we shared with them all of our concerns about the service and how it was sort of getting people upset in the market. Anyway, we came back and we were flying back, and we flew back through Las Vegas, and we were sitting there. We had like a couple-hour delay. And we were in Las Vegas having some dinner, and we were just talking about what would drive more people, more air traffic. And I said to the guys, we ought to just, jokingly, we ought to rename the airport from Klamath Falls Airport, because nobody knows where Klamath Falls is. And John says, well, what would you call it? And I didn't even hesitate. I said, we should call it Crater Lake Airport. I mean, everybody knows what Crater Lake is, and it would elevate it. It would almost make it seem bigger than it is. And so everybody sort of, the light went off for all of us sitting at the table, like, that's a really good idea. I wonder what's actually involved, whether we could rename the airport. So we got back, and John looked into it, and we said, well, actually, if we weren't changing the three-letter designation, LMT, as long as we don't change that, we can call it whatever we want. We just have to notify the FAA that we're doing it, and we have to get approval from the city council. So about a week or two later, John and I went in and we pitched the city council on this, and they just looked and they go, yeah, that seems like a pretty easy idea. So that's how it got going, and it was just quite simply that. We had some cost to change the signs at the airport from Crater to Crater Lake Klamath Regional Airport, and we changed all of our marketing material and so forth. But it was very little. There was no opposition, and it was funny as we were going through the process. We looked at other airports around the country that had changed their name, and we found several that had done something similar to this. And each of them, we contacted those airport managers, and each of them reported that just the name change alone provided them a little bit of a lift, maybe 5 to 10% lift in terms of passenger count. So we thought, hey, that's nice. So.
And where do things currently stand, and what's your involvement with trying to get an airline back here?
Well, currently we are continuing to try to bring a new passenger air carrier into the market. We have a meeting later this month, again with SkyWest. We recently met with United Airlines in Chicago, and they were very interested, but their partner for the smaller markets is SkyWest. So United said to us they are, they would not be servicing this market themselves. They deferred to SkyWest, their partner. So we will be meeting with them again later this month to make a presentation, talk about what sort of revenue guarantees we might be able to provide. Another thing that's happening right now is we've sort of dialed this up with our state elected people, our congressional delegation. And there's a program that is called EAS, or Essential Air Service, and this is sort of a government subsidy program that had been out there for a long time, in which several hundred small community airports had been guaranteed, if you will, funding, so that they could go to an airline and say, look, you're guaranteed this amount of revenue, guaranteed. Well, the EAS program went away a couple of years ago, and so there's today it's sort of supply and demand. So there's no revenue guarantees to an airline, and so they're very apprehensive, even skeptical about coming into a smaller market. So our legislators are now trying to put a bill through Congress that would reinstitute the EAS, or Essential Air Service program. And the basis would be that we have a base here with Kingsley, that we have a regional medical center with Sky Lakes, that we have 2 colleges, actually 3 if you count Klamath Community College, Oregon Tech, and also Oregon State University Extension. So we're trying to make the case that Klamath is an essential community for air service, to get a subsidy from the government that then we could take back out to a United or an Alaska or another carrier and say, hey guys, you're absolutely guaranteed a minimum revenue so that you're not going to get hurt financially.
Well, Discover Klamath does a lot to market and promote, but on the individual level, how can Discover Klamath help people to plan a vacation or plan things to do? I know the website is a great resource for that, right?
DiscoverKlamath.com is the website. You certainly can email us at visit@discoverklamath.com. Our phone number, 541-882-1501. There's several ways, Kurt, that Discover Klamath helps. First of all, we have a welcome center. People are welcome to come into the Welcome Center at 205 Riverside Drive any time. We're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5 during the weekdays, and 10 to 2 on Saturdays. And we're like a concierge service. We really will help you plan your trip. So we get thousands of people that do come into the Welcome Center. We answer hundreds or thousands of emails every year, people that want information on the area, and we help them plan their trip, where to eat, what are the events, where to sleep, where to camp. You can call us up. We will help you. In the Welcome Center, we have lots of materials. So we have literature, we have maps, we have guides, fishing, rafting, kayaking, event guides, cycling maps, trail maps, all kinds of things. So we're here to support. We're a semi-autonomous entity. We're not part of Klamath County government, but we're here to serve the county, and that's our mission, is to serve and help folks plan and enjoy a trip.
So how can people get involved?
We love involvement. We love volunteers. We're often looking for folks to come in and spend a couple hours. If you feel like you know the community and you like meeting the public, come on down and we'll have you be a volunteer for a couple hours on a schedule that works for you. We have many volunteers that come in one day a week for 2 hours and just kind of hang out and meet and greet people. And, talk about, just answer the questions. People come in. Sometimes it's just they come in and they've been in the freeway driving for 5 or 6 hours, and they want to get out and walk around. Of course, the number one question we get, where are the falls in Klamath Falls? And we always have to sort of, I don't want to say sidestep that one, but, we do send people down the Link River Trail to what was the Link River Falls, and, let them know that while the falls aren't as spectacular as maybe they once were, it's a wonderful hike, and it's a nice walk if you want a nice half-hour walk along the Link River and get out and see some wildlife and some birds and maybe some deer and walk your dog and your kids. And so a lot of times people are just looking for a nice place to go walk, or they're looking for a restaurant. So just volunteers that are willing to come in and help people with their vacations.
Well, the falls got a lot larger last year when Starbucks inexplicably put Multnomah Falls down as being Klamath Falls on some of their promotional cups. So suddenly the falls were relevant again for at least a little bit there. I'll let you go with this, and thank you for all of the time and information. We've talked a lot about upcoming events like Ride the Rim and Klamath Independent Film Festival, lots of different things that people can do. What would Jim Chadderdon do if the weather's gorgeous, you got a couple days off from work, everything's done? What's the first thing that you would want to go out and do in the Klamath Basin?
Well, I really like getting out and hiking. I'm a bike rider and I like to hike, so I never get tired of going to Lava Beds National Monument, which is just one of the awesome spots here close by. I like exploring the caves. And I never get tired of the trails up at Crater Lake. I'm starting to get more exploratory out on the Spence Mountain project. Out there, many of us locals call it Doak Mountain, and Doak Mountain is on the left side of Highway 140. Spence Mountain is on the lake side, or the east side. So a lot of times I'll talk about Spence Mountain. People will say, where's that? I've never heard of it. And it's like, do you know Doak Mountain? Oh, yeah. Well, it's on the other side of the road is Spence Mountain. Well, for those that don't know, the Klamath Trails Alliance is the lead organization building out a 50-mile trail system that is absolutely beautiful. If you want some nice hiking trails or running trails or single-track mountain bike trails, that is great because you got some phenomenal views and vistas of Klamath Lake that are just epic. I really am starting to explore that area a lot more these days.
Fantastic. Well, Jim Chadderdon is the executive director of Discover Klamath, helping to promote our region, tourism, and all kinds of upcoming events like Ride the Rim, which is happening this Saturday and next Saturday at Crater Lake. Jim, thank you so much for coming in and educating us about all that's happening with Discover Klamath.
Thanks, Kurt. Happy to be here.